The Pilgrims. The Pilgrims lived in England. In the early 1600s, the King of England told everyone that they had to go to his church, the Church of England. They were not allowed to go any place else. The Pilgrims did not like this. They formed a group called the Separatists because they separated from the Church of England. They held secret meetings in their homes. When the king found out, he sent many of them to jail. So the Pilgrims decided to leave England so they could have religious freedom. They were led by a man named William Bradford. They sailed away from England on September 16th, 1620, and began their voyage to a new land. The Mayflower Voyage. When the Mayflower left England, there were 102 passengers on board. The journey was not easy. The ship was very crowded. The Pilgrims had to take everything with them, including clothes, food, livestock, weapons, and tools. Everyone lived together in one small space below deck. There was no privacy, and it was very noisy. There wasn't much water for washing, so people could not bathe. The ship soon began to sink. When the weather was good, people could go above deck to get some fresh air. But soon the ship runs into some terrible storms. Many people become sick. It is impossible to keep dry and warm. A few pilgrims also died on the trip. Finally, after 66 days at sea, land was spotted. The Mayflower sails into what is now Plymouth, Massachusetts, their new home. Once they reach land, the Pilgrim leaders write and sign the Mayflower Compact. This sets out the laws for their colony. The men go to shore and begin to explore. They need to find a good spot to build their houses. They are also worried about Native Americans. They choose a spot close to fresh water and good soil for planting. It is also on a hill to help protect them. By the time they are ready to build, it is winter. It takes the men a long time to clear the land and build the houses. The women and children stay on the ship during the winter. It is very cold and there is little food to eat. Many of the pilgrims become sick. About half of the pilgrims die from sickness or starvation. But in the spring, the pilgrims begin to feel hopeful. The Wampanoag tribe. The Wampanoags was the name of the Native American tribe that helped the pilgrims. A Wampanoag home was called a wetu. Wetus were made of curved poles and covered with grasses or tree bark. Most of their clothes were made from deer skin. They wore jewelry made from bones, stones, and shells found on the beach. Women cooked the meals outside over a fire. They ate birds, turkey, rabbit, squirrel, deer, and seafood. They also grew different fruits and vegetables and gathered nuts and berries from the forest. Everyone had chores to do. The men and boys hunted and fished and made their own bows and arrows. The women and girls cooked, gathered food, made clothes, and tended the crops. For fun, children played games, ran races, danced, sang songs, and told stories. The first Thanksgiving. In the spring, the pilgrims cleared land to plant their crops. One day, a Native American named Squanto showed up. He spoke English and was very helpful and kind. He showed the pilgrims how to plant corn. He taught them to put fish into the soil to help fertilize the seeds. He also helped them to become friends with the other Native Americans that lived nearby. By fall, the corn and other crops were ready to harvest. There was plenty of food for the pilgrims to store for the winter. They were very grateful to the Native Americans for their help and decided to have a feast to say thank you. The men hunted wild birds and caught fish, and the women baked bread, cooked vegetables, and made corn cakes. Around 90 Native Americans came to the feast, and they brought wild turkey and deer to share. The feast lasted for 3 days, and besides eating, everyone played games, had shooting contests, danced, and sang. Thanksgiving past and present. There are many differences between how we celebrate Thanksgiving today and how the Pilgrims celebrated. The first Thanksgiving lasted for 3 days. Today, our celebrations last for just 1 day. The Pilgrims did not have turkey, but instead ate deer, wild birds, and fish. Pumpkin pie is usually served for dessert, but the Pilgrims did not have pumpkin pie or any other type of dessert because they had no sugar. There were no mashed potatoes or sweet potatoes because the Pilgrims did not plant any, and they were not a popular food. Today, families gather around a table to give thanks, but many of the Pilgrims sat on the ground to eat. They also did not have any forks, just knives and spoons. But one thing that remains the same is that Thanksgiving is still a time to be thankful for all our blessings and a chance to be with family and friends.